Because of a curse, a man somehow gave birth to twins. The older sister, Alaire, inherited the family's talent. By the age of 7, she had entered the Pioneer Order and become a rising star admired by everyone. But the younger brother, Azadin, inherited the curse. He was born without eyes, unable to use magic, and was treated by everyone as a monster. Yet no one expected those very flaws to become his greatest advantage. Because he had no eyes, his perception far surpassed ordinary people, giving him a vision clearer than sight itself. He could even see through people's hearts. Because he could not use magic, he turned his mana inward and transformed it into raw physical strength, enough to leap back 100 meters in a single step. And Azadin's first true appearance began with a wish a young woman made with her life. That day, the woman's husband excitedly gave her a gold coin. He also told her the legend behind it. According to the tale, it was an emperor's coin. If someone drew a triangle around it, they could summon a pioneer to grant their wish. But it was also a dangerous object. The king's church called the pioneers evil worshippers of false gods. The woman froze. If it is that dangerous, why would you give it to me? While she was still stunned, her husband stole a kiss. But that peaceful happiness did not last long. Soon, the village was struck by a once-in-a-thousand-years drought. The fields produced nothing. The villagers had no choice but to migrate. Then, a fully armed rescue squad arrived at the scene. But, without a word, they began slaughtering the people. This was the Count's order. However, the Count's son, Kazal, thought simple slaughter was too boring. So he came up with an even crueler method of torture. Among that couple, the husband had been cut across the waist while resisting earlier. So Kazal deliberately tied a rope above his wound. That way, gravity would keep tearing the wound open, making it worse and worse while keeping him alive. His wife could only use her small body to support him, desperately trying to stop the injury from worsening. That sight only made Kazal even more excited. He brought over a whip and lashed the woman viciously. But no matter how much pain tore through her body, the wife's arms stayed locked around her husband and never let go. Just as Kazal was about to keep tormenting her, a knight walked toward them. He was Kazal's swordsmanship instructor, Jibek. You are a noble, with the sacred king's blood. How can you do something like this? Are you not afraid of this getting out? But Kazal did not care about his teacher's warning at all. He only stopped when he finally grew tired. After that, the woman kept holding that position with all her strength until afternoon, when her husband could no longer bear it. Using the last of his strength, he opened his mouth and called weakly, "Sophia, I'm begging you, please, run away." And with that, he never moved again. His voice was faint, but in his wife's ears, it was as sharp as a blade. She shook her head desperately. Then she took out the gold coin her husband had given her. She placed it on the ground and drew a triangle around it. The Pioneer will come save us. Legend said the Pioneer family was a group of cursed people. To break their curse, they had to grant the wishes of contractors and collect the Emperor's gold coins. Once formed, the contract would take effect within 2 days. In that moment of absolute despair, the wife became the most devout believer in the world. But the irony was that even her husband had never believed the legend. He had only told it to make her happy. Soon, the wife collapsed from dehydration and exhaustion. When she regained consciousness, it was already the next morning. Jidek had secretly come over and fed her water. He had also used a stick to support her husband's body. Once the woman woke up, Jibek immediately prepared to leave. "I cannot let the young master know I came here. Otherwise, the consequences will be more than I can bear. As for your husband, you no longer need to keep holding him like that." Jibek's words were the same as declaring the man dead, but the wife still stubbornly supported her husband and refused to let go. The sight left Jibek frozen in place, and the guilt in his heart grew even heavier. Even though he had not personally taken part in the massacre, the woman suddenly looked up. "Please tell me your name." A faint light appeared in her eyes. "When the Pioneer descends, I will ask him to forgive you." In sharp contrast to the hope in her eyes, Jibek's gaze was filled only with pity. He never imagined someone would truly place their hope in such an empty, uncertain legend. Even if the Pioneer really did exist, the rescue squad still had 20 soldiers. More importantly, the Count's son carried the sacred king's blood. You should know what that means, right? The king's blood possessed overwhelmingly powerful and sacred magic. Ordinary people could never defeat magic. But Jibek's words did not shake the woman at all. Her gaze only became firmer. The Pioneers are mages too. They have killed bearers of sacred blood many times. They are divine beings. They can win. Jibek did not argue anymore. He simply believed the woman had been driven mad by unbearable trauma. My name is Jibek. I am a holy knight of the King's Church. I am telling you my name, not because I want to beg for mercy. If those soulless heretics truly come, I will fight them with everything I have. In Turkish, the name Jibek means executioner, and it was because of him that the demon of today came to exist. Leaving only a promise that he would return at night, he turned and walked away. The woman looked down at the spot where the coin should have been resting inside the triangle, only to find that it had vanished. The woman gritted her teeth in relief. Just 2 days. Within 2 days, they would definitely come. But the sun that day was unbearably harsh, as if it burned hotter than any day before. After returning to the rescue squad's camp, Kazel and Jibek clashed once again. Jibek believed the disaster had been caused by the climate. The villagers were innocent, and they could simply be relocated to more fertile land. But Kazel saw things completely differently. In his eyes, the land had been nurtured by the sacred king's blood. The villagers' attempt to flee was an act of disloyalty against the sacred. That was why the gods had punished them and made the sun burn even hotter. Everything he was doing now was, in his mind, saving them. Their conversation ended on bitter terms. Time passed quickly, and evening soon arrived. As promised, Jibek returned to the place where the couple had been, hoping to help the woman again. But unfortunately, he would never see her standing there and supporting her husband again. Several hours earlier, she had already died of dehydration. Jibek walked up to the two bodies. By then, nearly 2 days had passed since the woman drew the contract. Even if the pioneer did arrive as promised, nothing could be changed anymore. Jibek muttered under his breath, and an unexpected sense of disappointment rose in his heart. As a holy knight of the King's Church, he actually found himself hoping those heretics would appear and stand against Kazel. But at that moment, a strange black mist suddenly drifted up beside him. Before Jibek could react, a sharp sword was already pressed against his neck. What was this ghost-like swordsmanship? And this cold, ominous aura felt like the complete opposite of sacred magic. Jibek quickly realized the person before him might be the legendary pioneer. Are you a pioneer? Truly? After receiving confirmation, Jibek honestly gave his name and identified himself as a holy knight. The other party spoke lightly. You are probably not the petitioner, are you? If you were, that would be far too ironic. That careless tone made anger surge inside Jibek, but he gritted his teeth and forced it down. The boy who had arrived quickly scanned the surroundings and guessed that the dead woman beside them had been the true petitioner. According to the rules, if the petitioner died, the coin would become the reward of the pioneer who came. Still, he wanted to hear what had happened from Jibek. Jibek said coldly, "If you remove that sword from my neck and keep your distance, I will gladly tell you." The boy asked back, "Did you really think you could catch me so easily without an ambush?" As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flickered, and he was already 100 meters away. How is that possible? Jibek was stunned by the speed and precision of that movement. Is he a ghost? Is it magic? Are you a mage? The boy shook his head. Aside from me, every other pioneer is a mage. Just physical strength pushed beyond human limits. That display stirred Jibek's curiosity even further. What is your name? And as a pioneer, what rank are you? The boy answered honestly. I am Azadin, the 108th pioneer under the Emperor. What? The 108th? Jibek froze on the spot. Legend said there were only 108 pioneers in total, yet even the very last one possessed this kind of power. As promised, Jibek told Azadin everything that had happened to the couple. I see. How unfortunate. After hearing the story, Azadin merely clicked his tongue. Just then, an owl swooped down from the sky. The contract has been fulfilled. The coin now belongs to you. 108th Messenger Azadin. Please proceed to your next mission. Hearing a bird speak made Jibek freeze for a moment. The fact that a bird could talk was shocking enough, but the message it delivered made him even more uneasy. So the petitioner is dead, and you can just take the reward and leave without a second thought. Oh? Azadin looked at him. So the Holy Knight wants the wish to be carried out? If that happens, things will not end well for your young master. Realizing he had spoken carelessly, Jibek immediately drew his sword. Nonsense. I will defeat you here, you soulless heretic. Seeing the knight point his sword at him, Azadin let out a cold laugh. Your sword stayed silent when it faced true injustice, and now you want to turn it against me. Are you angry at me? Or are you angry at yourself? What do you know? Jibek shouted, his mind in turmoil. Azadin remained calm. Stars are supposed to be heroes that form constellations, but in some people's eyes, they are nothing more than faint lights in the darkness. As he spoke, Azadin pointed at the woman's body. You saw the victims differently from the other soldiers. You treated the petitioner, then stayed here and waited for me. No. There is no difference. I am a holy knight of the king's church. I must fear and obey those who possess sacred blood, Azadin said calmly. I have no intention of fighting you. If you still feel pity for that woman, then your sword is not my enemy. Jibek fell silent. Azadin turned his back to him, giving him a perfect chance to strike. And yet, Jibek could not bring himself to attack the pioneer. At that moment, Azadin's blade flashed, cutting through the rope tied to the poplar tree. The man's body fell from midair, but Azadin caught it steadily with just one hand. What kind of physical technique was this? Even Jibek, who had absolute confidence in his own swordsmanship, could now see that the person before him was a monster on a completely different level from himself. So this was the power of a pioneer. Do you have a shovel? A shovel? You mean you want to bury them? Jibek was filled with confusion. Since the petitioner was already dead, Azadin had no obligation to care for them after taking the coin. Yet now, he was trying to bury the couple with his own hands. Forget it if you don't have a shovel. With his back to Jibek, Azadin began digging with his bare hands. Was he really going to bury the bodies? That alone was a direct challenge to Kazel. After all, Kazel wanted corpses hanging from every tree. Then, he planned to let them be tainted by evil magic, turn them into undead, and use them as a symbol of his authority. There was no way he would ignore something like this. While Jibek was still lost in confusion, Azadin had already dug a large pit in the ground. Jibek watched the scene, his fingers tightening around the hilt of his sword. Those corpses had been left to rot on the trees, stripped of even the most basic human dignity. They were like flags, hung high above a tyrant's desire for cruelty. So how could he point his sword at someone who simply wanted to lay the dead to rest? That thought suddenly made Jibek feel cowardly and pathetic. In the end, was he not just another servant, loyal to a tyrant? With that thought, Jibek sheathed his sword. He walked closer to Azadin and began digging with his hands as well. Before long, the two of them had buried the victims. Archangels of wisdom, courage, and mercy, have mercy on their souls. Azadin clasped his hands together and began to pray softly. Jibek froze. Azadin was a follower of the evil emperor and a member of the pioneer family. Yet the prayer he was reciting now was the funeral rite of the Savior Knights. The Savior Knights were another force, separate from both the King's Church and the pioneer family. Jibek could not help speaking. You arrogant fool, have you abandoned your family's fate for a heretical faith? No. I simply admire the ideals of the Savior Knights. Azadin spoke calmly. If I cannot follow what I believe to be right, then there is no meaning in my birth. He was clearly just a young boy, yet Jibek sensed an astonishing level of maturity. What are you going to do about the rescue squad? Azadin turned his head, but did not answer right away. He quickly unfastened the strap across his body and pulled out a long bow. In that direction, someone you respect is approaching. Jibek's heart jolted. He turned around sharply and saw the last thing he wanted to see. Kazel was walking at the front, leading a dense mass of armed soldiers toward them. What's this? Did you have a thing for that woman? You should have told me sooner. So Kazel had known everything from the start. Jibek quickly scanned the area and realized the number of men approaching was considerable. Almost the entire rescue squad had arrived fully armed. Even as a holy knight, Jibek had no confidence that he could win against this kind of force. But beside him, Azadin did not hesitate at all. He drew his bow and fired straight at the soldiers. The arrow flew at terrifying speed, curving sharply through the air before striking a rear soldier directly in the eye. The next instant, screams echoed through the valley. Azadin gave the enemy no time to breathe. He immediately fired a second arrow. The soldiers in the front had already raised their shields, believing those sturdy shields could easily block the attack. But to their shock, the arrow pierced straight through the thick shield and struck the soldier behind it. Jibek froze. The fact that the arrow could bend its path in midair was already shocking enough, but the force behind it was even more terrifying. How much strength would someone need to do something like that? Didn't you ask me how I deal with the rescue squad? Azadin suddenly said. A person's worth is not decided by their identity, but by the belief they uphold and the actions they take. Just like those who possess the sacred king's blood, yet slaughter their own people. So even if they carry sacred blood, that does not make them noble. Azadin's actions instantly sent Kazel into a rage. He immediately ordered Jibek to kill Azadin. But before the command had even fully left his mouth, Azadin leapt into the air. While airborne, he drew his bowstring again and again. Arrows rained down like a storm, giving the soldiers no time to react. Large numbers of soldiers screamed as they were struck and collapsed. From the very beginning, the battle was almost completely one-sided. Even Kazel himself had one of his ears pierced by an arrow. But he soon realized something. Azadin was not trying to kill them. He was trying to make them permanently lose the ability to fight. Who the hell is this guy? Kazel roared in fury, but before he could finish speaking, Azadin appeared behind him at an unbelievable speed. My name is Azadin, a pioneer under the Emperor. What? A pioneer? One of those soulless freaks? One soldier broke out in a cold sweat, clearly having heard plenty of sinister rumors about the Pioneer clan. After the battle just now, Azadin had already used up all his arrows. Kazel realized this was his chance and immediately ordered his men to attack. But before he could finish giving the order, Azadin punched him and sent him flying. What shocked Kazel even more was that even after switching to a longsword, Azadin's combat power remained terrifying. If you still have the courage, then come at me. You lunatic. The soldiers were deeply wary of Azadin, but they also understood that if they backed down, Kazel's cruelty would be just as terrifying. Amid one scream after another, almost every soldier on the scene lost the ability to fight. Some had their eyes destroyed, while others collapsed and could no longer stand. After finishing all of that, Azadin walked up to Kazel. Sorry to keep you waiting, you piece of trash who brings nothing but suffering. You bastard. I am a noble. Kazel trembled in fear, but soon he suddenly turned around and created a blinding flash of light with magic. See that? This is my magic. It proves that I possess an incomparable noble bloodline. The light was so intense that even the soldiers who had just been blinded screamed under its overwhelming brightness. But Azadin seemed completely unaffected as he swung his sword at Kazel. The strike did not hit a fatal vital point. Instead, it struck somewhere that was enough to break Kazel completely. What do you want? Money? Women? I will give you anything. I am a descendant of the God King, a descendant of the Yaga's clan. That identity was enough to make almost anyone tremble, but it had no effect on Azadin. Is that so? What a coincidence. I am the God King Slayer. When intimidation failed, Kazel frantically looked around. At last, his gaze landed on Jibek, who was still standing nearby. What are you doing? Save me. I can't see. Perhaps the flash from earlier was still affecting Jibek's vision, because he made no move at all. I am a noble, a descendant of the God King. Why should I suffer because of a few lowly commoners? Kazel broke down and roared again. In the end, he lost his last remaining eye. The Emperor's decree had been carried out. Although Azadin had not killed anyone, he had given the criminals the punishment they deserved. But just then, the sound of a sword being drawn came from behind him. It was Jibek. He had drawn his blade. No matter how righteous your actions may be, I am a holy knight of the King's Church. I cannot simply stand by and watch. Looking at the stubborn Jibek, Azadin gave a bitter smile. A rigid holy knight. You are nothing like the other knights. You dare mock me? No, that was praise. Most of the other knights of the King's Church are devils who joined only to inherit priestly offices. The moment he finished speaking, black mist rose around Azadin once again. Wearing armor that heavy, you will never catch me. Under Jibek's shocked gaze, Azadin's figure vanished into thin air. If fate allows it, we will meet again. His voice echoed through the air. Jibek looked around, but all he saw were soldiers scattered across the ground, stripped of their ability to fight. True enough, he really did beat us senseless. Jibek laughed without even realizing it. He found that the burden in his heart seemed to have completely lifted. Meanwhile, inside Magrave Castle, a large group of village chiefs had crossed mountains and rivers just to meet Kazel's father, Count Magrave. Because their villages had gone months without rain, they had come to request an exemption from taxes. The people are displaced, and the streets are filled with corpses that have turned into undead. Under these conditions, there is no way we can gather enough tax money. Count Magrave's eyes were cold. The audacity. Today you beg for tax relief. Tomorrow, what? Food aid? The village chiefs knew Count Magrave's personality was twisted, but they had no other choice. The Count said coldly, "If the blood in your bodies were as noble as mine, perhaps I would accept that suggestion. Otherwise, if you miss the deadline, I will have every last one of you hanged." The moment those words came out, the hall fell into dead silence. But unexpectedly, Count Magrave showed rare mercy today. There was one condition. They had to find that sheet of paper for him. As Count Magrave spoke, he opened his palm, and a magic book appeared out of thin air. To villagers who knew nothing about magic, this was nothing short of impossible. But Count Magrave told them not to worry. Even if they did not understand magic, as long as the wish in their hearts was strong enough, that sheet of paper would answer their call and reveal itself. If they truly found it, Count Margrave promised not only to exempt them from taxes for 3 years, but also to provide 20,000 liters of wheat every year. With such a generous reward, the village chiefs realized that the page was anything but ordinary, so someone asked for its name, a duplicate of the God King's book. Count Margrave's voice remained arrogant. The moment they heard that name, everyone froze. Long ago, on the continent of Hubris, there were once 8 thrones, and each throne was held by a member of the Yagas clan who possessed sacred blood. But King Aslet, through his extraordinary ability, conquered his other 7 brothers, claimed all 8 thrones for himself, and was crowned emperor. At the same time, the predecessors of the pioneers, the foreign Aragasa people, also arrived on this continent. They desperately needed land where they could settle, and the emperor needed to erase the traces left behind by the 7 great kings. So he granted those outsiders a grimoire called Song of the Yellow Bird, along with a soul known as the Voice of the Emperor. In exchange, those outsiders made a pact with the emperor and became his pioneers. From that moment on, the Aragasa clan's hands were stained with sacred blood. They became the emperor's hounds. They brought punishment down upon evil nobles who violated the emperor's laws. But that era did not last long. After the emperor's death, the empire split once again into 8 independent kingdoms. From then on, the Aragasa clan was rejected by the world and called the Soulless Ones. Yet, even though the emperor had died, the contract between them remained in effect. The Aragasa clan still had to carry out the duties of the pioneers forever. After dismissing the village chiefs, a soft rustling sound came from behind the curtain behind the count. Then, a massive snake slithered out. It slowly raised its body upright and transformed into a beautiful young woman with bronze skin. My lord, mentioning the name of the God King's book was perhaps a bit reckless. Nonsense, Count Margrave said coldly. Are you witches not already busy searching for that book right now? Rumors will soon spread across the entire continent. Even finding 1 page before anyone else would be enough. As the count spoke, he turned and asked why the woman had come. The woman told him that Kazel had been attacked, but the count did not believe it was true. After all, Jubek had been there. Kazel should not have been defeated so easily. Their opponent was a pioneer, the woman said calmly, and the pioneers are also after the God King's book, hoping to use it to break the curse that enslaves them. Besides that, the woman also gave the count some good news. Kazel was not dead. He had only been blinded and crippled. The count clicked his tongue and said he would send soldiers to hunt down the pioneer. I understand. I will contact the commander right away. But leave this matter to someone else. As he spoke, the count revealed a sinister smile. Since my son is useless now, I'll just sire another. Meanwhile, after leaving the battlefield, Azadin had been wandering around the area for quite some time. Why boast that the contract will always take effect within 2 days? What a load of nonsense. You foolish boy, how dare you speak so rudely to the voice of the emperor? A solemn voice echoed beside him. The one speaking was none other than the spirit of the voice of the emperor. It listened to the requests of petitioners and connected them to nearby members of the pioneer family. It was an artificial spirit created by the emperor, and even centuries after the emperor's death, its spiritual power had not weakened at all. It remained as powerful as it had been in the past. That alone proved the emperor's power was almost divine. But Azadin scoffed at the idea. Honestly, the emperor died without warning and left us, his messengers, behind to be hated by the entire world. We're called God King Slayers, soulless heretics, and whatever else they come up with. And on top of that, I had to dump almost all my luggage just to make it here in 2 days. Now I'm practically dying of thirst. Azadin's words left the owl spirit unable to argue. How unfortunate. But do not worry. Your attendants will arrive soon. While the two were bickering, Azadin suddenly became alert. A ghostly blue flame was drifting slowly through the air. When Azadin approached, faces emerged from the shadows. He recognized them as the people who had been hanged from the mulberry tree at the village entrance. Among them were the couple who had made the wish. The ghosts clasped their hands together and bowed respectfully to him. Azadin nodded in return. This land lacks the light of royal virtue and the blessing of the archangels. There is no benefit in remaining here. Please go on to the afterlife. The ghosts did not respond to Azadin's words. Instead, they raised their hands together and pointed toward the village well. Azadin thought they were trying to give him water, but when he eagerly pulled the bucket up, he found there was no water inside at all. There was only sand, along with a sheet of glowing paper. Is this one of the pages from a duplicate of the God King's book, the source of the Emperor's authority? Azadin's lips trembled slightly. Just then, a ghost flame drifted past his eyes, and the ghost's figures began to fade. Please rest in peace. Azzedine held the glowing page of the God King's book in his hand. If I accept this mission, can I truly break free from the bondage of my duty? The voice of the Emperor answered calmly. Calling it a curse is not exactly accurate. According to the agreement, this is an honorable duty. But it just had to fall into my hands, Azzedine muttered. The voice of the Emperor continued. You do not look very pleased. Is this not exactly what you pioneers have always hoped for? There are 2 ways to terminate the contract with the Emperor. First, collect 100,000 Emperor's gold coins. Second, obtain the God King's book. I am not at the point where I can be happy yet. Azzedine stared at the God King's book in his hand, feeling the strange touch of fate. After all, the God King's book had been torn apart in the first place because of Azzedine's father. After that, Azzedine left the village and set out on his journey again, while the dryness in his throat continued to torment him. At the same time, not far behind him, a small head peeked out from behind cover. That is the guy. According to the rumors, he is the most useless and stupid person in the family. Cursed and unable to use magic. The girl's tone was filled with disdain. Clearly, she believed someone like Azzedine was not qualified to serve as a pioneer at all. Miss Midia, we should go back. Beside her was a young boy around the same age. I want to test his skills. The girl took out an arrow. Ah, no, you can't do that. Hearing that she wanted to test him, the boy panicked. We attendants aren't allowed to just attack a pioneer. A duel should be fine, right? There is no way I will lose to someone who cannot even use magic. To make sure she would not kill Azzedine with a single shot, the girl thoughtfully snapped off the arrowhead. The boy could not help reminding her. But he was personally promoted by Elder Kazas. So what? Do you really think Elder Kazas training him for 10 years could turn him into someone strong enough to overwhelm every other pioneer? After casting aside her distractions, the girl pulled the bowstring tight. Then she aimed at Azzedine and fired. This was the Aragasa family's signature technique, double arrow. The arrow flew extremely fast, shooting straight toward Azzedine's head. Before the attack even landed, the girl immediately crouched down and hid. She listened anxiously to the sounds in the distance, and only dared to peek out after everything had gone completely silent. But what greeted her was a flying pebble that struck her squarely on the forehead. Right behind it came Azzedine himself. Was that arrow just now yours? It was merely my way of greeting you. The girl said it casually, but inside she was deeply shocked by Azzedine's movement. She had not sensed him approaching at all. He moved like a ghost. At the same time, she noticed 2 extra arrows in Azzedine's quiver. Clearly, he had caught the arrows she fired. With no other choice, the 2 of them explained why they had come. The girl's name was Midia, and she came from the Atoll family, one of the 5 founding families of the pioneers. The boy was Ismail, Midia's servant. The 2 of them had been sent by the family to assist Azzedine. Assist me? By doing this? As Azzedine spoke, he threw out the arrows that had just been used to attack him. I saw that your quiver was empty, so I offered you my arrows. Is that not excellent assistance? The girl actually used that excuse to justify her attack, and Azzedine sighed helplessly. You 2 should just go home, children. Children? The moment Midia heard that word, her expression darkened. I've said it before. I carry the blood of the Adel family. I am far nobler than a descendant of traitors like you. Bloodline means nothing to an attendant. Azzedine turned away and said, If you came here to work for me, then you are my subordinate. Besides, you attacked me just now. After saying that, Azzedine's expression grew cold. Perhaps I should teach you the consequences of doing something like that. The pressure coming from him made Midia instinctively shrink back. Was this really the person from the rumors? The weak, useless man anyone could bully? Please forgive my rudeness. If you want something from me, then show the proper respect. Whether as a member of the Aragasa or as an enemy, choose for yourself. Enemy or kin? When Azzedine asked that question, Midia finally realized he was not someone she could toy with. So she hurriedly lowered her head and apologized. Although Azzedine accepted her apology, he did not compromise. He still told them to go back where they came from, but just as he turned around, he seemed to remember something. By the way, do you 2 have any water? Midia did not answer. She only glared at Azzedine fiercely. I challenge you to a duel. No, this man is dangerous. Ismail quickly tried to stop her, but his warning did not shake Midia at all. She had already realized the rumors were wrong. Azzedine was not the fool people claimed he was. On the contrary, he seemed powerful and deeply proud. But if she did not dare to challenge him just because he was strong, would that not make her a coward? Pioneer Azzedine, I, Midia, formally challenge you for your position as pioneer. Are you serious? Azzedine looked at her. If you win, my position as pioneer is yours. But if I win, Do you understand what the consequences will be? Of course I do. My life and death will be in your hands. Everything I have will belong to you. Azzedine lowered his head. He knew his reputation within the clan was poor, but even so, there was no way he would lose to a 13-year-old girl. So Azzedine tried once again to refuse the duel, only for Midia to reject him firmly. She turned and walked backward. Of course, she was not trying to run away. She was simply creating distance between herself and Azzedine. When they were 100 steps apart, she finally stopped. There, 100 steps. Azzedine, I challenge you. Seriously, do we really have to do this? Just as Azzedine was feeling speechless, a solemn voice suddenly rang out from above. Duel established. Pioneer Azzedine has accepted the challenge. Oh my gods. The V voice of the Emperor. Ismail panicked as well. It was said that every pioneer had a spirit companion, and that spirit was the voice of the Emperor. Now that it had become the witness, this duel was no longer a child's game. This is bad. Ismail grew restless and anxious. He did not want anything to happen to the young lady he served. No, there is no way I will lose. A few minutes later, Midia lay on the ground covered in wounds, unable to say another word. Clearly, the result of the duel was completely different from what she had imagined. Ismail recalled what had just happened, his face still full of disbelief. Because he had no arrows, Azzedine had used pebbles instead. Normally, because a bow has a steep angle, anything launched from the string could easily strike the back of the shooter's own hand. But Azzedine had somehow done it. He used a technique passed down by the Aragasa, swinging the bow like a sling. The stone tore through the air and shot straight toward Midia. Unlike a precise arrow, the stone's path was far harder to predict, forcing Midia to curl up in panic. The stone struck the ground, bounced, shattered into several fragments, and flew at Midia again. Song of the Yellow Bird Moon Halo. Midia spread a hazy shield of moonlight and barely blocked the attack. But Azzedine's next strike was even more absurd. The pebble he fired changed direction multiple times in midair. Of course, this was not magic. He had simply added spin to the projectile, creating an effect similar to magic. Pebbles attacked Midia from every direction and from different angles. Fortunately, Ismail shouted out the attack direction in time, allowing Midia to avoid being hit. The duel quickly entered its final stage. Azzedine deliberately exposed an opening, making Midia believe she had found the perfect chance. Now, her blades swept out and sliced precisely across Azzedine's abdomen. But in the next instant, his body scattered like black mist. What she had struck was only an afterimage. The real Azzedine had already appeared behind Midia. Midia tried to cast magic and counterattack. But Azzedine was clearly faster. He grabbed her wrist in one swift motion and said calmly, "It's over." The next moment, Azzedine's fist slammed into Midia's stomach. With a thunderous impact, she was sent flying and crashed hard into the mountainside. Miss Midia. Ismail could no longer hold back and rushed over at once. "I will never forgive you, you low-born bastard. How dare you hurt my lady?" Ismail charged at Azzedine through gritted teeth, trying to save Midia. But at that moment, the voice of the Emperor rang out. The duel is over. Midia has failed her challenge. Her fate will now be controlled by Pioneer Azzedine. And Ismail, because you interfered in the duel, you will become Azzedine's slave together with Midia. The voice of the Emperor declared the final result on the spot. After her defeat, Midia was overwhelmed with shame. She immediately drew her blade, intending to end her own life. But with a sharp, metallic clash, the dagger was knocked from her hand. Azzedine had already expected Midia to do this after losing the duel. "Sorry, little girl. Your life belongs to me now. Without my permission, you don't even have the right to die." Midia clenched her teeth, desperately trying to calm herself down. Watching her expression tighten and then force itself to relax, Azzedine could not help laughing. What an absurd little girl. Azzedine could not hold back a laugh. That should be enough of a lesson. "All right, Midia, Ismail, you are both free." "What?" Hearing that, both of them could hardly believe it. Not only that, Azzedine even planned to erase the record of this challenge. After all, you don't want to leave behind a record saying you picked a fight with a pioneer for no reason, do you? Huh? Why? Midia could not understand Azzedine's intentions at all. "A beautiful and talented girl like me is standing right in front of you, and you are just letting me go without doing anything? Beauty and talent." Azzedine scoffed. "Let's put beauty aside for now. If you had even half of Alair's talent, you wouldn't have ended up like this." Alair was Azzedine's twin sister. A long time ago, after the Emperor unexpectedly died, the Aragasa clan won the War of Succession and obtained a duplicate of the God King's book. At the time, every member of the clan believed they could use it to break their contract with the emperor. But a traitor appeared within the clan. His name was Acre. He stole the duplicate of the God King's book and tore it apart, scattering its pages across the world. Although Acre eventually died from the curse, the outcome could no longer be changed. Because of that curse, Acre somehow gave birth to twins, the older sister, Alaire, and the younger brother, Azadin. Ironically, Alaire later became the strongest pioneer of the Aragasa. As for her younger brother Azadin, he was treated as a talentless failure. After Azadin ordered the two of them to leave, he still kept following behind him. I already told you I won't take you with me. Go home. We aren't following you. We just have something to give you. As Midia spoke, she took out an envelope. This is a letter from the person in charge of the Sarasama region. Azadin accepted the letter. The letter scolded him for missing far too many midterm reports. It also stated that duplicates of the God King's book had recently appeared around the world, and that recovering them would count toward performance evaluation. It was all written in the letter. Looks like the other pioneers already know too. After reading the regional chief's letter, Azadin sighed. You two know about this as well? We do. The duplicates of the God King's book were scattered across the world because your father betrayed the family. Ow. Midia had spoken without the slightest hesitation, and Ismail could not help stepping on her foot. What was that for? Why did you step on me? Midia had clearly failed to realize how serious the issue was. Forget it. Azadin helplessly realized that in the end, he still had to follow the letter's instructions and go see the regional chief. All right. Thank you for delivering the letter. I have received it. Then may we travel with you for a while? Midia's eyes lit up. I can tell you what has been happening in the family lately. It's not like I own this road. Follow me if you want. After saying that, Azadin walked straight ahead. All right. Midia immediately followed him with excitement. Azadin was now in the most remote area of the Sarasama border territory. Even if they followed the main road, there was no telling how long it would take to reach Sarasama, and this entire region seemed to have been suffering from drought for a full month. Fortunately, they discovered a small stream along the way. So, the group prepared to go over and fill their water flasks. But just then, a voice suddenly rang out from the distance. Hey, who gave you permission to take water from our spring? 6 men who looked like local thugs immediately surrounded them. Azadin did not want trouble, so he simply asked what they wanted. Everything you have, of course. Kill the women and leave the men for us to play with. Relying on their numbers, the thugs approached with arrogant smiles. Let me ask one more time. Is there really no room to talk? Why does this brat talk so much? And look at that mask on his face. What is he supposed to be? A clown? At the leader's order, the thugs immediately launched their attack. But Azadin only crushed the pebbles in his hand, and the 3 men in front were instantly knocked to the ground. The remaining 3 were frozen by the combat power Azadin had just shown, and completely lost their will to fight. As sorry, we didn't know who we were messing with. The thugs knelt down and revealed their identities. They had been forcibly recruited by Count Magrave's son, and their mission was to search for a duplicate of the God King's book. The inland region was already falling into chaos because of the drought, and many people were close to becoming refugees or bandits. Midia thought they were making it all up, but Azadin felt they were not lying. After all, no merchants or travelers would normally pass through this road. Then, to silence them, we should just kill them. Midia offered the suggestion as if it were nothing. Wait. I'm not the kind of person who kills people casually. If we don't kill them, even if they truly change their ways, they will still expose our route. Ismail agreed with Midia, but Azadin believed that every person only had one life, and they should be given a chance to repent. Yes, exactly. Human lives matter. My lord is truly wise, just, and merciful. Bless your generous heart. If someone did not know better, they would think these thugs had known Azadin for years. Their flattery was already polished to perfection. Azadin looked at them and grinned. The next second, he punched the thug leader. Still, each of you needs to walk away with a permanent reminder. Don't move. Otherwise, it won't just be your eyeball flying out. It'll be your whole face. When the remaining 2 thugs heard that, they froze completely. Don't joke like that. I already told you. Don't move. It's only one eye. A piercing scream exploded through the forest. Dozens of minutes later, Azadin released the thugs as promised. You bastard. I'll curse you till the day you die. The one-eyed thugs seemed to have completely forgotten their earlier flattery and were now cursing him at the top of their lungs. But at that moment, a massive hand suddenly appeared. That hand crushed one of them to death in an instant. The one who appeared was a huge troll. It casually grabbed the remaining men and stuffed them into the bamboo basket on its back. Meanwhile, the troll spotted the village in the distance. A human village. Food, here I come. After everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, Azadin's group set out again. Midia couldn't help but speak up. At first I thought you were simply letting them go. But after seeing what you did, I think it was actually a good move. Azadin said calmly, people who bully the weak and steal from others can only understand that feeling once they become weak themselves. Once they lose an eye and become weak, they will finally be able to feel what others felt. Azadin was kind, but those who deserved punishment would still be punished. Still, compared to those thugs, he was more worried about something else. The thugs had mentioned that Count Maygrave was also searching for duplicates of the God King's book. Ismail repeated the rumors he had heard on the road. Could it be that Count Maygrave lost political power, so he wants to obtain a duplicate of the God King's book and use its magic to rise again? Someone obsessed only with gaining power was far too dangerous. So before leaving Maygrave's territory, Azadin removed his mask. It was the symbol of a pioneer, an eagle-shaped mask that stood out sharply. But the moment Azadin took off the mask, both Midia and Ismail were stunned. His nose was high, his brow bones were clear, and his face could be called handsome. But where his eyes should have been, there was only a scar stretching across his face. You have no eyes. That's why I'm called Azadin. The name Azadin comes from an eyeless evil dragon in the ancient myths of the Pioneer clan. According to legend, Azadin, the eyeless evil dragon and incarnation of death, fought endlessly against the angel of justice, Alair, until they destroyed each other on the day of the apocalypse. But you don't look blind at all. Azadin explained that he did not know the reason either. He had been born without eyes, yet it did not affect his sight. And the scar across where his eyes should have been was left by his older sister Alair. Azadin still clearly remembered what she had said back then. If what should be there is missing, this actually makes it look a bit more natural. Thanks to that scar, once Azadin removed his mask, he could perfectly disguise himself as a blind pilgrim. After walking for who knew how long, they finally arrived at the main road near the border. This was the Emperor's Road, the great route that connected the major cities across the continent. The village built at the entrance of this road was called East Gate Village. As the name suggested, it served as the gate leading onto the Emperor's Road. Midia and Ismail froze when they saw the inspection taking place at the gate. It was never this bad last time. Back then, people could pass as long as they paid a small toll. But now, the men conducting the search clearly did not look like decent people. The mercenaries were practically looting in public. Azadin guessed that they were searching so carefully because they were looking for duplicates of the God King's book. Just then, a merchant nearby spoke to Azadin. Sir, are you blind? Yes. These two children are orphans traveling with me on pilgrimage. From the merchant's words, Azadin confirmed his suspicion. They were indeed searching for duplicates of the God King's book. Anyone who found one would receive a massive reward. This was going to be troublesome. The problem was that Azadin currently had a page from a duplicate of the God King's book on him. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with the situation, a commotion broke out up ahead. Didn't you say you were looking for the God King's book? Then why are you taking my money? Get lost. No one knows what form a grimoire might take. Maybe it's a grimoire shaped like money. We'll take it for a careful inspection. If we confirm it's not the God King's book, we'll return it to you. The mercenaries made it sound reasonable, but there was no way they would actually return what they had stolen. The man's daughter also stepped forward to stop them, but the mercenaries did not care at all. Those damn bastards. What should we do? Fight them? Wait, let's see what happens first. Azadin stopped the two of them. He had noticed a messenger walking into the middle of the mercenaries. The messenger seemed to exchange a few words with them, and the mercenaries' faces changed at once. They began packing up their weapons and stolen goods. That's enough for today. They only allowed the people who had already been searched to pass. Everyone else was ordered to stay in the lodgings outside the gate. After that, the mercenaries entered the gate and shut it behind them. What's going on? The merchant frowned in anger. I heard they found a troll nearby. Azadin told the merchant quietly, my hearing is sharp. I clearly heard what they said just now. What? The merchants and travelers left outside the gate were all terrified when they heard that. They pounded on the gate with all their strength, but the soldiers inside ignored them completely. Inside the city, a white-haired man sat in a carriage. He was Count Magrave's illegitimate son, Tarki. After hearing that a troll was coming, he immediately prepared to abandon the city and flee with his soldiers. After all, a troll was already hard enough to deal with, and this one had goblin troops with it. Tarki had no reason to waste his private soldiers fighting here. There was no helping it. They would retreat with the spoils. Just then, someone suddenly called out to Tarki. It was the acting village chief, asking how this situation was supposed to be handled. Tarki did not take it seriously at all. Obviously you repel them. You've received enough training. You should be able to handle this. I leave this place entirely in your hands. After saying that, he fled in his carriage. But the militia led by the acting village chief had only received a single day of training. Sending them out like this was no different from sending sheep to the slaughter. The ground seemed to be trembling. Just as the sun was about to set, the acting village chief disobeyed orders and opened the gate. He knew very well that the militia, made up mostly of aging middle-aged men, could never defend the village on their own. So he decided to let the merchants and women enter the city to help with the defense, while the young and strong stayed in the village, and the elderly, the weak, the women, and the children went to take shelter. Because of this arrangement, Azadin's group followed the evacuation line. Since they were disguised as a blind man and 2 children, the villagers treated them especially kindly, even giving them the only lantern they had. Azadin understood the village chief's intention. He was not trying to drive these people away. He was trying to protect them, because the situation inside the city was actually far more dangerous than outside. As he said this, Azadin seemed to think of something and stopped. Then, this is where we part ways. As soon as he finished speaking, black mist wrapped around Azadin's body. A few seconds later, he completely vanished. On the other side, the troll had arrived before the city with a swarm of goblins. Their dense formation alone was enough to make people shudder. But the most troublesome enemy was still the troll leading them. It stood over 5 meters tall, a terrifying height. After killing its way down several branching roads, the troll had already captured several humans. You all mine. Food for Gordo. As it spoke, the troll raised its right leg and slammed it hard into the ground. The city wall instantly shook violently. Fire arrows, the acting village chief ordered. The archers immediately began shooting, but almost every goblin carried a shield, so the attack was not very effective. Then the troll at the front grabbed a massive boulder. It hurled the stone straight at the city gate. The terrifying impact nearly smashed the gate open on the spot. Seeing the humans fall completely into a disadvantage, some villagers began to waver. Should I run? If I run now, maybe I can still survive. At that moment, a goblin mage, hiding nearby, raised a specially made staff. The God King's book? The God King's book is mine. As soon as those words fell, a man wearing a hawk mask suddenly appeared and kicked the goblin mage over. Not only that, when the villagers were attacked by the troll, he also saved 2 of them in passing. The one who had arrived was Azadin. I will help you defend the gate. Who are you? The acting village chief was stunned by Azadin's movement. Just a passing pioneer of the emperor. As Azadin said this, he removed the bow frame from his waist and began stringing it. A pioneer of the emperor? A pioneer? While everyone was still confused, Azadin had already leapt down from the city wall. He reached out, grabbed an arrow, and fired it. The arrow split into 2 in midair. The next second, both arrows pierced through the troll's eyes at the same time, and the troll screamed as it fell backward. In a frenzy, the troll swung the obsidian axe in its hand wildly, but after losing both eyes, it could barely even walk straight. Azadin seized the chance and jumped onto the troll's head, then began clearing out the remaining goblins. As so strong, the battle turned around in an instant, and the strongest troll had already lost its ability to fight. Just then, the basket it used to carry its spoils suddenly tipped over, and the humans inside struggled to crawl out. Azadin noticed that the same group of thugs from earlier was among them. At that moment, the goblin mage struggled back to its feet. Its arm began to mutate in a grotesque way. The God King's book is mine. I will become the king of all races. Blood-red chunks of flesh burst out of the goblin's body like ropes. Sharp teeth sprouted from those chunks of flesh and began tearing apart everything they touched. Azadin clicked his tongue as he watched the bizarre scene unfold. The Kurt gods, the kin of teeth. The Kurt gods were savage deities that had existed on this land before the Yagas ever arrived, and many magical beasts once served them. The monster continued devouring the corpses nearby. Then the goblin's head emerged from inside the mass of flesh. Come, hounds of Yagas, hand over the God King's book. The goblin mage raised its staff, and in the next instant, a beam of light shot toward Azadin. The light directly illuminated the duplicate of the God King's book hidden on Azadin. But before the goblin could say anything more, Azadin's arrow had already grazed past its head. What was that light just now? It seemed to point toward the God King's book. Are they searching for it too? Azadin felt a strange sense of doubt. While thinking, he dodged the monster's attacks. Then Azadin picked up a rusty goblin sword from the ground and charged straight in. With a flash of steel, he cut through the tooth-covered flesh. The teeth growing from the flesh were huge, but their roots were shallow, making them surprisingly fragile. Arrogant fool. I am the King of Teeth. No, you're nothing but a pathetic minion created by the King of Teeth. Azadin calmly corrected the goblin. The two sides clashed again, immediately. At the same time, the sword in Azadin's hand began to smoke. The powerful digestive fluid secreted by the monster's tentacles was corroding the blade. Azadin had no choice but to throw the sword away. This fight had already caused him far too much trouble, yet it offered him nothing in return. But with those deadly tooth-covered tentacles attacking him, he had no time to mourn the loss of a weapon. The villagers watching from nearby began to panic. Fire arrows! We have to find a way to help that pioneer, the acting village chief shouted. But if the king's church finds out we helped the pioneer clan, that's a serious crime. Even though it was a grave offense, the acting village chief scoffed at the idea. Those damned people from the king's church already abandoned us. Who's going to punish us now? We are just trying to attack the monster. After the monster is taken down, we can worry about arresting the pioneer clan later. That works. Yeah, exactly. The villagers raised their bows together and began firing. Azadin looked at the arrows flying over his head and gave a bitter smile. Compared to the arrows he fired, these were painfully weak. If only they would give those arrows to him instead. Still, at least while fighting the monster, the villagers were treating Azadin as one of their own, and that satisfied him well enough. So Azadin picked up a sharp tooth that resembled a shark's fang. He turned sideways and hurled it with a sharp swing of his arm. The fang tore through the air, ripped apart a tentacle, and then drove deep into the monster's body. The sudden pain made the monster thrash violently. Good. Looks like this works. Azadin continued picking up the teeth he had cut off earlier with the sword. He threw them out in rapid succession, and the sharp fangs flew into the monster, piercing it full of holes. Unable to endure the pain, the goblin's head emerged from inside the monster again. You bastard. I was about to become the King of Teeth. Why are you stopping me? Unfortunately for you, I am the God King Slayer, Azadin answered. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw another sharp tooth. The fang instantly split the goblin's head in two. Right after that, the monster's massive body began to collapse. Azadin carefully avoided the chunks of flesh on the ground and picked up the fallen magic staff. But at that moment, a villager's voice came from behind him. Soulless heretic. The villagers were glaring at Azadin, and some had even drawn their bowstrings. How rude. Once a bowstring is drawn, it can easily misfire. Among the crowd, some people were clearly grateful for Azadin's help, and some were willing to welcome him, but others were suspicious. What are you really after? Why did you help us destroy those monsters? Don't tell me you brought those monsters here yourself. Some of them hated the Pioneer clan so deeply that they began twisting everything against him. After all, they had been taught that the Emperor's pioneers were soulless heretics, terrifying beings who deserved death. So it was not strange for them to think this way. Everyone, listen. Azadin raised his voice. I simply completed a task according to the Emperor's gold coin. Because someone used an Emperor's gold coin to make a wish for all of you. Who was it? Don't tell me that person is among us. I have no obligation to tell you, and no right to reveal it. Azadin ignored the panicked crowd. Now, may I pass? Or are you going to fight me in the name of the King's Church doctrine? Don't insult our faith. The villagers talked tough, but not a single one of them dared to actually fire. Then, I'll be going. Azadin climbed onto the wall with ease, then grabbed a handful of arrows from the quiver. Taking a few arrows shouldn't be a problem, right? No one is allowed to attack. The acting village chief immediately stopped everyone, then lowered his voice and whispered, Thank you. How foolish. Saying something like that could get you executed. Azadin said this, and jumped down from the wall and entered the gate. The gold coin? Impressive. You really can lie without even blinking. The voice of the Emperor rang in Azadin's ear. Don't you think they went too far? You helped them drive off the monsters, and that's how they treated you. Everyone has moments of weakness, Azadin said calmly. In any case, they treated me decently when they thought I was a blind man. That's enough for me. They deserve to be treated kindly too. After saying that, Azadin quickened his pace. Still, I'm exhausted, and after all that work, I didn't even get a single gold coin. After running along the road for about half an hour, Azadin soon saw Midia and Ismail. To wait for him, the two had deliberately separated from the evacuation group. What? You defeated one of the Kurt gods? After Azadin told them what had happened, both of them were stunned, but Ismail quickly lowered his head. You spent all that effort for nothing and didn't even receive a single coin. Azzedine told him that helping people in need was a good thing. Without ideals like that, life would become painfully dull. As he spoke, Azzedine suddenly took out a staff. By the way, Midia, do you know what this is? Is it a magic staff? Midia accepted the ancient staff Azzedine handed her. It was something Azzedine had seized from the Kurt god. He was too tired right now and needed to focus to appraise it properly. Ah, right. As Midia spoke, her eyes suddenly widened. Are you entrusting this to me because you have accepted me as your attendant? Not exactly, but when you meet kin this far from home, you can at least help with something this small. Midia nodded, but then asked Azzedine to promise her one thing as well. Fine, no problem. Tell me tomorrow. After saying that, Azzedine leapt forward. We need to hurry and keep moving. A few hours later, they finally caught up with the evacuation group. Ah, you are safe. Thank goodness. Everyone was relieved to see Azzedine's group unharmed. After catching up, Azzedine told them that his hearing was sharp and that he had heard cheers of victory coming from the village, so they could turn back now. The refugees were half convinced and half doubtful. But when they saw lights glowing from East Gate Village on the hilltop, they were basically sure the village was safe. Send a few people back to confirm the situation first, then decide what to do. Azzedine suggested this, and everyone agreed. So the people temporarily stopped fleeing and chose several fast runners to return to the village and confirm the situation. After escorting the villagers safely back to the city, Azzedine immediately rushed toward his next destination. After getting this exhausted, there was no way he would let all that effort go to waste. Dozens of minutes later, Azzedine arrived near a camp. Stationed there were Count Magrave's illegitimate son, Tarki, and the mercenaries he had hired. In the darkness, someone was quietly watching them. And when that someone saw Tarki's loot chest, the voice of the Emperor's eyes lit up at once. Now this is a huge haul. Exactly. Azzedine whispered. My travel funds are almost gone. Early the next morning, Tarki gathered all the mercenaries. What's going on? You actually let someone steal our belongings? The mercenaries explained that they had been attacked and were knocked unconscious before they could even react. But Tarki did not care. If you take the money, you do the job. Then he turned his anger toward the mercenary captain. This is your responsibility. 1 month's pay will be deducted. Any objections? The captain could only agree. Also, one of my own belongings is missing too. No matter how I look at it, this wasn't done by an ordinary thief. Looks like this ends here. Tarki was not stupid. He knew that if he kept pushing the matter, the mercenaries might mutiny on the spot. However, the mercenary captain whose pay had just been deducted did not look satisfied. He said quietly, I bet the one who stole that thing will head to a nearby village. Mr. Tarki, could you order us to conquer that village? What? Wait, the nearest village around here is the station village we passed on the way, isn't it? That place is managed by nobles. It won't be easy. Tarki rejected the suggestion, then pointed at the mercenary captain and cursed at him, telling him to watch his tone. But the mercenary captain simply grinned. It doesn't matter. Even if you refuse, we'll loot it in your name. What did you say? What's that supposed to mean? Tarki stared in confusion at the mercenary captain, who had suddenly started saying strange things. At that moment, the mercenary captain drew a small knife and stabbed it hard into Tarki's lower abdomen. Captain. The mercenaries were also startled by this sudden betrayal. He had just driven a blade straight into their employer's stomach. Don't worry, this dagger came from a witch. Tarki was shocked. He clearly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. Yet there was no blood, not even a wound. No, more accurately, the dagger had somehow turned into a strange spider, and it quickly burrowed into his stomach. The mercenary captain smiled as he stared at Tarki. You're still fine right now, aren't you? Tarki flew into a rage and drew his sword. Even as an illegitimate son, he had received solid swordsmanship training, but the mercenary captain in front of him merely whistled. Tarki instantly felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen, then dropped to his knees. Come now, calm down first. The spider inside your stomach only gave you a little bite just now. If you refuse to obey me, it will lay eggs inside your belly. And when those things hatch, Tarki trembled all over and struggled to get back up. What do you want me to do? The mercenaries looked at their captain with fear written all over their faces. They all seemed to be thinking the same thing. He had never been like this before. I want to requisition the station village and find the one who stole my belongings. The mercenary captain smiled as he spoke, but his eyes flashed with vicious killing intent. Meanwhile, Azzedine had returned to Midia and Ismail. In Tarki's loot chest, he had found another staff connected to the Kurt gods, so he wanted Midia to appraise it. But Ismail suddenly snatched it from the side. Leave it to me. A moment later, Ismail began the appraisal. He said he could sense 2 kinds of mana inside the staff, green and black. If it belonged to the devouring king of teeth, there should also be red mana mixed in. Azzedine guessed that the staff might have come from another member of the Kurt gods. Ismail agreed with that judgment. As for the staff's function, it was used to locate a certain special item. Hearing that, Azzedine paused. So this thing is used to locate duplicates of the God King's book. In that case, whoever lost this staff definitely won't let us go. After thinking it over, Azzedine returned to the mercenary camp to observe their reaction. The atmosphere today was completely different from yesterday. The mercenaries seemed to be maintaining their weapons and equipment, preparing to launch a war. Azzedine told Midia what he had observed. They seemed to be preparing to attack the station village. Midia froze when she heard that. That village isn't ordinary in scale. It's far beyond a normal rural settlement, so she guessed that the mercenaries must have been forced into this by something. Otherwise, they would never make such a suicidal decision. So Azzedine decided to avoid the mercenaries and head to the village first. As the sun set, Azzedine once again disguised himself as a blind man and passed through the checkpoint with ease. He entered the station village. It was called a village, but in this sparsely populated region, calling it a large city would not be an exaggeration. At that moment, the station village happened to be holding a market, and caravan wagons filled the open space near the entrance. It's the Krazar Trading Company. Great. When Midia and Ismail saw the wagons flying the Krazar Trading Company's banner, they were instantly delighted. That was because this trading company was one of the front organizations run by the pioneer clan, the Aragasa people. In other words, every member of the company was an Aragasa. As soon as Azzedine approached, the performers and caravan guards noticed him. One by one, they revealed malicious smiles. Well, if it isn't the famous 108th pioneer, Lord Azzedine. You've only been a pioneer for 3 months, and you already have 2 attendants? Quite impressive. Azzedine sighed. It was always like this. In the eyes of the pioneer clan, Azzedine was the son of the traitor Akre, someone who could never be forgiven. We're still kin, at least. Shoe my goat for me. You can manage that much, right? Of course, we wouldn't dare disobey your command. Azzedine turned and handed the valuables he had stolen from the mercenaries to another person. Exchange these for money too. Also, if you have any blue steel arrowheads, could you get me some? Well, you brought some nice things with you. Where did you steal them from? Azzedine could hear the mockery in their voices, but he was already used to it. Even worse, when Azzedine said he wanted to take a bath and change clothes, someone from the caravan actually tossed him a dress. Can you stop with these childish pranks? I really don't want to fight you. Azzedine sighed and handed the clothes back. What did you just say? You want to fight us? Are you trying to get yourself killed? If you hadn't gotten lucky and become a pioneer, you would be no better than us. As it turned out, the members of the Krazar Trading Company were all training peers from Azzedine's cohort. Just then, a voice suddenly rang out. If you're really that upset, then challenge him to a duel. The one who spoke was Midia. A duel? Are you crazy, little girl? That guy can't even take 1 punch from me. They glared viciously at Midia, but her expression did not change. In the next instant, Midia moved. She used a light-footed technique from Song of the Yellow Bird and vanished from everyone's sight. In the blink of an eye, Midia had leapt onto the back of one of Azzedine's former peers. Her dagger pressed against his throat, and the man panicked at once. Wait, little girl, what are you doing? Do you understand the situation? I am a descendant of the Adel family. You low-born trash. How dare you show such disrespect to my pioneer? The dagger in Midia's hand trembled slightly, slicing through skin as blood began to seep out. Her murderous attitude left the trading company members at a loss. The way she looked, she really seemed ready to go through with it. At that critical moment, a voice came from the crowd. All right, everyone calm down. The speaker was a young blonde man named Derek, the leader of this caravan. Long time no see, Azzedine. I apologize on behalf of my team, so could you please stop here? With the leader's appearance, the situation finally eased. After the farce ended, Derek walked over to Azzedine. Go take a bath first. After that, let's have a meal together. Derek had something he wanted to ask Azzedine. Of course, it was not about the two of them. It was about Azzedine's older sister, Alaire. As it turned out, when Derek was very young, he had once attacked Alaire, but he was beaten badly in return, especially his ankle, which had been shattered. The caravan camp was made up of many tents. After bathing inside one of them, Azzedine felt much better. Lord Azzedine, Ismail's voice suddenly sounded. Alaire has the same blood as you, and she is respected by everyone, isn't she? I heard that anyone who dares question her ends up paying the price. What Ismail meant was that Azadin should learn from Alair's way of doing things. That way he would not have to suffer this kind of humiliation again. But Azadin politely refused. Everyone should have their own style. After his bath, Azadin attended Derek's dinner invitation. As soon as the meal began, Derek could not wait to ask about Alair's current situation. But Azadin said he knew nothing. You don't even care about your own sister? With her abilities, she isn't exactly someone I need to worry about, is she? As Azadin spoke, he reached for an apple, but Derek moved the plate away before he could take one. Your subordinate attacked members of the trading company, right? You knew they were from the Sabin family, and you still dared to touch them. Azadin did not answer. Instead, he took out the staff he had seized from the Kurt gods. I recently took down a group of trolls and goblins and obtained this. Do you know what it is? Derek nodded. The regional chief has been looking for you because of that. The cultists of the Kurt gods are searching for duplicates of the God King's book. And this is the tool they use to locate those duplicates. So everyone in the Aragasa knew about these things, and Azadin was the only one no one had bothered to tell. Still, no matter how you look at it, bringing back this bone staff is a major achievement. By the way, did those cultists have the God King's book on them? No, they didn't. But what do you mean by that? Did you get the God King's book from somewhere else? I did get it. Did none of the other messengers find one? Derek's eyes widened instantly. A deed duplicate of the God King's book. You really found one? Hand it over to me. Azadin calmly took a bite of an apple. Getting it to you would be even more dangerous. One of Count Magrave's sons is heading here with a group of mercenaries. Do you think I'd lose to them? I may lose to Alair, but no matter what, I was once a pioneer too. That's exactly the problem. If a group of merchants suddenly shows strength they shouldn't have, wouldn't that make people suspicious? Derek became furious with Azadin. None of that matters if it means protecting the God King's book. Besides, Azadin could not deny that Derek was far weaker than Alair. Ever since they were young, Alair's strength had always been far above his. Even though 10 years had passed, and Azadin had grown much stronger, he still could not even imagine how powerful Alair had become by now. Azadin shook his head, and ultimately decided to hand the God King's book directly to the regional chief. Just as the tension between Derek and Azadin reached its peak, a member of the trading company suddenly rushed in. The East Gate. Something happened at the East Gate. The station village was managed by knights under the Count of Sarasama. At dusk, a young knight arrived at the station village with a group of mercenaries. It was Tarki and his mercenary band. The gate knight refused to let them enter, using the large number of people as the reason. It's almost dark. Stay at the inn outside or camp in the open for tonight. Come back tomorrow. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. According to the rules, that was exactly how things should be handled. But Tarki knew what they really wanted, so he quietly walked over and slipped them a sum of money. Just a small token. Please accept it. Haha. Sir Tarki, this does put us in a difficult position. The date knight laughed as he accepted the bribe. But just as he was about to let them through, a sharp sword suddenly pierced through his head. The one who attacked was the mercenary captain. Immediately after that, the other gate guards were quickly dealt with as well. Tarki was shocked by what he saw. I never told you to kill him. You openly attacked a checkpoint? If the King's Church investigates this, it'll be a serious crime. The mercenary captain did not care at all. He slowly raised his palm, then gently blew on it. The tiny spiders in his palm were sent onto his subordinates' bodies. In that instant, the mercenaries' bodies began to mutate. An abnormal strength surged through them. Tarki clicked his tongue as he watched. You're a Kurt heretic? You only realize that now? How sharp of you. The mercenary captain smiled. Let's cooperate. It'll benefit both of us. After saying that, he whistled. Pain tore through Tarki's abdomen again. He had no choice at all. The mercenary captain ordered 2 of his men to guard the city gate and allow no one in or out. The rest entered the village to search for the thief. However, the order forbidding anyone from entering or leaving soon caused a major commotion. A hot-blooded young man insisted on leaving the city right away and completely ignored the mercenary's warning. After saying, "You have no right to stop me," he tried to force his way through. But at that moment, one of the mercenaries reached out and grabbed his head with one hand. Then, he lifted the young man high into the air. That was not the strength a normal human should have. The mercenaries' faces were blank, and their eyes glowed with an eerie green light. "I'm hungry." As those words left his mouth, his jaws split open in a grotesque way. Just as he was about to devour the young man, an arrow suddenly flew in and pierced straight through his mouth. A moment later, Azadin descended from above and drove a spear directly through the mercenary's head. When he saw countless tiny spiders crawling out of the wound, Azadin immediately realized these men were followers of Atra, the spider queen of the Kurt gods. Even more absurdly, the mercenary whose head had been pierced did not die. He climbed back up and attacked Azadin again. Although the attack missed, it still gave Azadin quite a shock. They could survive fatal wounds, which meant those spiders had already taken control of their nervous systems. Azadin exchanged several rounds with the two mercenaries, but ordinary physical attacks had almost no effect on them. As the fight continued, the two mercenaries even evolved spider legs. What a pain! Just as Azadin muttered under his breath, a voice suddenly rang out. Midia arrived in time, quickly pulled a torch from a wagon, and threw it over. Azadin caught the torch and swung it in one smooth motion. The heat of the flames forced the mercenaries to retreat again and again. As it turned out, the spiders inside their bodies were extremely afraid of heat. Even a little warmth was enough to cook those tiny insects. Ismail immediately brought over several more torches and lit them. Once the mercenaries were surrounded by fire, they panicked and desperately tried to escape the ring of torches. But they could not. The villagers nearby noticed what was happening and joined in, throwing torches as well. In the end, the two mercenaries were burned to death without being able to fight back. How was my help? Perfect timing, right? Midia boasted proudly. You're definitely going to need us many more times in the future, so shouldn't you accept us already? At that moment, the owl swooped down from the sky. A petitioner has appeared, but they're already dead. Which direction? West. They just died. Damn it. Azadin cursed under his breath. Then he immediately prepared to head toward the west gate. You two, get the fire ready. We're going to the west gate. Before he even finished speaking, Azadin had already rushed off in a hurry. Is he giving us orders now? But on the way, mercenaries who had already transformed into spider monsters lunged at him. The moment they entered Azadin's range, he struck with lightning speed. But no matter how badly they were wounded, the mercenaries simply would not die. If they had been ordinary humans, they would have collapsed long ago. Worse yet, they were still mutating, and their numbers were rapidly increasing, leaving Azadin unable to reach the petitioner's location for the moment. At that moment, an arrow suddenly flew in. It struck the target perfectly, and with a crackling burst of electricity, several spiders were instantly burned black. As expected, they're afraid of fire and electricity. Midia had just arrived, but before she could finish speaking, a wave of dizziness suddenly hit her. Song of the Yellow Bird is a colorless grimoire, and lightning spells like Thunderbolt are extremely inefficient. Still, at your age, being able to use Thunderbolt at all is already impressive, as expected of an Adel. That really is admirable. When Midia heard Azadin praise her, her face instantly lit up. Azadin shrugged. Rest for a bit. Looks like you've used up your mana. But as Ismail watched this warm little scene, he clenched his teeth. Midia had pushed herself that hard, just to earn Azadin's approval. By then, the west gate had already turned into a slaughterhouse. Once the mercenaries tasted blood, they grew excited and lost control, slaughtering people at will. Their bodies also began mutating even faster. The mercenary captain and Tarki were watching all of this coldly. Hey, is this really fine? Didn't you say you were looking for a duplicate of the God King's book? Tarki questioned the mercenary captain. Yes, it's a little different from what I expected, but things are progressing smoothly. Progressing smoothly? Hey, at this rate, why would the person with the God King's book ever come to this village? The mercenary captain did not answer. As he walked past a pile of bodies, he suddenly noticed a triangle symbol drawn on the ground. What's this? The triangle on the ground is the mark of the money demon. Tarki suddenly cried out. Money demon? You mean the Emperor's pioneer? The mercenary captain tilted his head in confusion. I suppose so. They seem to be searching for the God King's book as well. Maybe the one who stole my belongings is one of them. Are you seriously planning to fight a money demon? Tarki asked in panic. But before he could finish speaking, an arrow shot toward him. Fortunately, it missed. On the other side, the mercenary captain easily reached out and caught the arrow. Interesting. That was fast. The mercenary captain had just thrown the arrow away, when another arrow came flying straight at his face. You still don't get it? The mercenary captain sneered and reached out to grab it, but this time, he couldn't react in time. The arrow struck his head directly. You deliberately made the first arrow weaker to make me lower my guard, didn't you? As he spoke, the mercenary captain spread his arms, and 6 spider legs rapidly grew out of his body. Azadin moved around Tarki and charged straight at the mercenary captain. His blade flashed, and the slash struck the mercenary captain directly in the abdomen. Look at that. So this is the Emperor's messenger. How interesting. The mercenary captain immediately began clashing with Azadin. Tarki, watching from the side, was completely stunned. Honestly, no matter which of these two won, it wouldn't be good for him. "Mommy, I miss you." Tarki sat on the ground, tears streaming down his face. The battle between Azzedine and the mercenary captain grew more intense. The mercenary captain's spider legs were cut off again and again, but thanks to his powerful regeneration, they kept growing back. So this is the leader. Even in spider form, he can still maintain human intelligence. "You're strong, I admit that. But you can't kill me." The mercenary captain's body began evolving once again. But Azzedine remained completely unmoved because he had already guessed the enemy's weakness. The power of the Kurt gods was still, in the end, a force of nature. The next second, Azzedine's body suddenly vanished into black mist. In the blink of an eye, he had appeared behind the mercenary captain. With a flash of swordlight, the mercenary captain's head flew from his shoulders. Tarki watched the troublesome mercenary captain get killed in an instant, and panic immediately took over. "You're a pioneer, right? Then you can't kill me. Because of this. Look." Tarki hurriedly pulled a small object from his pocket. It was an emperor's gold coin. Azzedine hesitated and stopped. "Where did you get that?" My mother. My mother gave it to me." Tarki smiled in relief. Looks like mother was right. The pioneer clan really can be commanded with an emperor's gold coin. Even if you have the coin, it's useless without a petition. "Damn it, I get it," Tarki muttered as he threw the coin into a nearby carved triangle. The coin vanished, and golden light illuminated the triangle. "How about now? I'm your employer now, right? I've been infected by that spider. Hurry and save me." "Your petition has been accepted." The voice of the emperor announced the request on behalf of the pioneer. Azzedine sighed. "Why does a petition from trash like this have to be accepted too?" The owl only tilted its head and said nothing. Tarki, meanwhile, burst into tears. "Mother, I survived." Not long after, Media and Ismail also arrived. After learning the full story, both of them froze. "So this guy made a petition?" "Yes, it's fine." Azzedine turned to Media. "Can you use Thunderbolt one more time? Keep the power a little weaker." Media stayed silent for a few seconds. "Since we're kin, I can help you. But I'm not even your subordinate yet, and besides..." All right. Azzedine raised his hands. "Once this is over," he said, "I'll accept you as my attendant. Thank you. I'll do my very best." In sharp contrast to Media's excitement, Ismail looked deeply worried. He had never seen Media so desperate for someone else's attention. Ever since they were young, no matter what Media asked him to do, Ismail would carry it out without hesitation. And yet, he seemed to have never truly received her attention. This was not fair. "Then I'll begin." Media cracked her knuckles. Wait, am I going to die?" Ignoring Tarki's protests, Media used the lightning spell, Thunderbolt. After being struck, Tarki screamed and collapsed to the ground. As expected, Thunderbolt could remove the infected spiders from his body. Although it also harmed the host, it was still far better than continuing to be tortured by the spiders. Anyway, the mission is complete. As soon as Media said that to Azzedine, her body swayed. Azzedine was startled. "Are you all right?" "Sorry. Looks like I pushed you too hard. I just need to rest for a bit. A descendant of Adel isn't that weak." A short while later, Tarki recovered a little strength and felt the tiny spiders crawling out of his body. His face strangely flushed red. The sight instantly left everyone stunned. "Why are you looking at me like that? Don't develop any weird preferences, dear child." Azzedine couldn't help mocking him. "Since his request has been completed, can we kill him now?" Ismail asked. The closeness between Media and Azzedine clearly irritated him. "What did you just say?" Tarki was shocked, but Azzedine stopped him. "Ismail, don't talk nonsense. Once the Emperor accepts someone's petition, it means they're an individual worth protecting. Even after completing the petition, we must treat the petitioner sincerely. Besides, the voice of the Emperor still needs to draw spiritual energy from the petitioner." Ismail was helpless. "Then can we leave now?" Azzedine lowered his head. In truth, he still wanted to clean out all the spider mercenaries in the city, but he was also afraid these two kids would keep nagging him endlessly. Fortunately, at that moment, hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the city. "We're from the King's Church." Everyone looked up and saw a group of people rushing toward them. "Good. We can leave the spider mercenaries to them. Let's go." But just as Azzedine's group was about to leave, Tarki suddenly called out to them. "Wait, take me with you. If the King's Church investigates me, I'm finished. At least take me somewhere without holy knights. You said that even after completing the mission, you would treat the petitioner sincerely, right?" Azzedine remained silent for a long time. In the end, he had no choice but to take Tarki with them. After that, Azzedine's group escaped the station village through the west gate. After traveling for a long time, They decided to stay overnight at a farmer's house. Tarki was dressed like a knight, so the farmers recognized him at once and froze in fear. "We need a place to stay. Hurry and take us." Before Tarki could finish speaking, Midia and Ismail covered his mouth. "We would simply like to borrow a place on your farm to stay overnight during our journey." As Azadin spoke, he handed the farmer a silver coin. "A barn or storage shed will be enough." The farmer gladly accepted. "Why did you stop me? These colonists are basically just lazy insects." Azadin didn't argue. He simply pushed open the barn door. "You're right. But someone as noble as you is staying with us now, aren't you?" "Fine, I can't argue with you." Tarki gave up and walked into the barn with them. "You should think carefully before you speak, dear child. I have a name. It's Tarki." "I know, dear child." The barn was large, so they decided to keep the goats on the first floor and rest on the second. "Ugh, what if there are lice here? Would that be worse than having spiders in your stomach?" Azadin mocked him. "Either way, there is absolutely no way I can sleep in a place like this." But before even a few minutes had passed, Tarki's snoring filled the barn. "What kind of people are the King's Church? People seem afraid of them, but also happy when they arrive." Midia suddenly asked Azadin this question. "They're holy knights who uphold the laws of the 8 kings, study white magic, and protect the people. That's why most people welcome them." As Azadin spoke, he turned to look at Tarki. "But in reality, they're filled with immoral scoundrels. They steal far more than they protect." "Like this guy?" Midia froze.